I'm good. Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Yeah,
How's everything there?
not bad. We are really happy to have you here on the Pikine Diaspora.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
That's for yeah, you were right there in Minnesota, right?
Yeah, I was in New York where I saw you for 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks, and then I just got back a week ago, and I'm back working at the Walker Arts Center. I'm a gallery assistant there, and I'm just working on my own. Minneapolis and Mankato.
Yeah, you were a good artist. You're an artist country. We met in New York like a few years ago.
Yeah, it's been probably over 10 now. I mean, over like 13, 14 years ago, I think.
14 years ago, and we met in Soho when you were wondering when you were telling your art on the street. It was like a very nice contact.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. It was a great way to see people and talk to them and experience the city of New York, too. Yeah, it's fun meeting you.
How did you get involved in art? How did you become like an artist?
I just have always been doing art, I guess, like a lot of people. In childhood, it was a way for me to kind of maybe escape or find my own little place. So I did that through childhood. And high school, I took a lot of art classes. I didn't really want to get graded, I think, in university. I kind of studied literature thinking, well, writing and creative writing and doing literature would be something I could do at university, which isn't necessarily uncreative. I mean, I was creative enough to do that, but I wanted to do art on the side. So after university, then I really started realizing I wanted to focus on visual arts. And I went to San Francisco and I studied figure drawing really intensely for a year and worked with giant puppets, and then just kept working. And eventually I ended up in New York, where I went to the Art Students League in my 30s and spent like 6 years at the Art Students League in Manhattan and studied figure drawing and studied collage, studied painting. So I was pretty happy with that.
But your work is like really intricate, so you also do like a lot of mixed media with a lot of collage return and include a lot of stuff in it. And how do you describe what you do?
Well, I guess, with these residencies I've been doing in Ghana and Ecuador and Vietnam, I have been focusing more on collage. So I've been doing collage based on whatever materials that are easy for me to find in the community that I'm in. So I would say, I try to use as simple and as inexpensive, recyclable materials that I can use to kind of be sustainable and also demonstrate maybe the culture and the kind of environment that I'm in. So in Ghana, I really was attracted to the red laterite soil. That's a really reddish soil that's common in a lot of countries in Africa and sub-Saharan area. So I used it like a watercolor. I mixed it with water, I mixed it with vegetable oil, and I added charcoal, just crushed charcoal from the fires in the village. I was located in Adujama, which is a village northwest of Kumasi, about a 90-minute drive. And I just used office paper, A4 office paper. I got 500 sheets and glue and a gallon of white house paint, and then mixed it with soil and charcoal. So for that, it was really nice. I could use all the materials around me, and it wasn't very expensive. And, yeah.
And then, because you just mentioned that you were in Ghana, I wanted to ask you what made you relocate in Ghana.
Yeah, I was there in 2009 for 8.5 months in this village, and then I returned to the village in 2011 for 2 months, 2013 for 2 months, and 2016, last year, for 2 months. I go back to the same village in the Ashanti region, which is near Kumasi, which is the second largest city in Ghana. And
you got a chance to work with the children when you were in Ghana. How was it like to be working with African kids?
Well, how I got to that village was a couple gallery owners in Minneapolis had a son who was in the Peace Corps for 3 years in this village, and I was telling everybody I wanted to go to Ghana, and I was a large reason why I wanted to go is I was so ignorant about Africa in general, cotton, and then Ghana got on my radar when they were playing the U.S. in the World Cup in 2006, so I started researching Ghana. So this Peace Corps volunteer invited me to live with the family that he lived with and checked in with them. And so I lived with the family. I rented a room in a house, and I set up an informal drop-in center for the neighborhood children. And the children that were in the family were doing art with me, and children would come whenever I'm available, and I would leave materials out, very simple materials that they could use, like in school, pens, colored pencils, and like A4 paper. So they came and they would just work, and I loved that they could, do their work, and I documented it, and I had books out that they sometimes were inspired by. And basically I didn't try to, do much intervention or teaching, so to speak. I wanted them to be self-motivated, and they did fabulous work. And I loved that, the Canadian children, because of maybe the kente weavings that are really famous from the Ashanti region, they used a lot of really strong shape and color. So I was really loving their kind of amazing kind of abstractions to me that were just full of great compositions. And then they also documented a lot of village life with the fufu pounding, with the large mortar and pestle. There was lots of drawings like that. So I thought what they were doing was very individualistic, creative, and I was taking photographs of their work, and they would learn a lot from the books, and we learned from each other. And they also saw how I use soil, and I encouraged them to, use soil and try different things out. So we would go and draw in the ground with sticks and use charcoal and even just create arrangements outside of little sculptural things. So they were really responsive and really eager. It was almost like too eager, like right early in the morning before I was awake, some children would be wanting to draw. It would be hard to tell them I'm not ready yet, It's difficult for me to get going right at 6 in the morning. Yeah.
Yeah, do you get a chance to work with local artists in the village?
Yeah, there was a couple artists in the area, and one artist, Akwasi Frimpong, was creating cardboard, like architectural models of houses and hotels and apartment buildings using just recyclables, cardboard and little pieces of plastic from film and other things. So I found out about him, and I had 3 international art exhibitions in the village at an area council hall in 2009, 2011, and 2013. And I invited artists to exhibit there from the U.S., from Europe. Many artists that I know had sent work, or I brought work with me, and even from Japan, a friend of mine had work in these exhibitions. And then Akwasi Frimpong had a nice featured space in this giant community hall, and was able to exhibit his work and got a lot of exposure. Atta Kwame, who's a really well-known artist from Kumasi and also lives in London, who has work at the Metropolitan Museum and the British Museum and the Smithsonian. He came to see that exhibit. And another area artist, Paula Megbo, who lived in the neighboring village Moncronso, he exhibited his paintings and was featured. A wood carver that I knew from Akwaba to Kumasi brought a large number of his wood carvings up and exhibited his. And yeah, a Kente weaver came that I got to know, and he sold a lot of his work, so it was a mixture of different styles of artwork, photography, wood carvings, from local artists, from artists in Ghana, and also from around the world. So that was really successful. People really seemed to enjoy that. And the village had a new experience of an international art exhibition, so I was really happy that people could have a good time and also appreciate art.
How were the works exhibited? Were it in a local gallery or in the open air?
Well, we did those 3 international exhibitions in the in the village. And then also I got a letter from the director of Alliance Française in Kumasi, and she saw my work online, because a lot of what I do is I post it on my Flickr page on my website, and people have discovered these photos that I document. So she invited me to exhibit at the Alliance Française in Kumasi, and that's when I curated a show in 2013 with Kwasi Frimpong, the artist, with architectural cardboard pieces and sculptures, and Paul Amegbo. So the three of us had an exhibition. And that was the first exhibition for this new director, and they had a large reception, and that went really well. And then I also exhibited in Minneapolis my installation of work that I did when I was in the village, all these large collage pieces that I can fold up. I fold them up into my suitcase, and I brought many things that I could create an installation with that are from the village. The brooms that I really love, made out of the fronds, palm fronds, and other things that made me feel really connected to Ghana. I'd bring the sachet bags and created patterns, these little bags that they use for water, drinking water. So many things I brought with me, and just in my suitcases. I had a big installation in Minneapolis. Then I also had a children's art exhibition displaying the children's art and the photographs I took of them to share with children and adults here, and kind of create connection is what I like. A lot of what I'm trying to do is just kind of weaving and helping people learn about each other and make connection.
And then, I know that in Africa, that people like exhibiting in the cities, but you do the contrary. Instead of like showing this work, the international works in African cities, you prefer to show them like in the country, like in the villages. So what was the reaction of people and those artists who have their work shown in a village?
Well, I know the artists really seem to enjoy it, because I documented, the receptions, and I documented, people looking at their work. And some of these artists, have shown in some really big galleries and have some recognition. So it was fun for them, I think, and really they appreciated it, that connection, just to see their work being enjoyed in an unusual place. Because I think, yeah, you're right, like a village isn't a common place for contemporary art, and maybe I like that more, because it seems less, just expected, and kind of creates a little bit more of a dynamic. And people seemed to really enjoy it. They were like, looking at work closely and examining it, and then getting their photos with it, and enjoying the experience of, of course, some pieces they kind of look at, are perplexed by, and like anywhere, like I work at a contemporary art space in Minneapolis, and people oftentimes are often confused. But I think people, for the most part, had a great time enjoying the work and finding it kind of...
Yeah, and now that you left to Ghana, are the kids still like doing art? Do they have like a place where they can go and do what you're putting? I'm not hearing you good. Danielle, I'm not hearing good.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes, I did share it with some of the people in the village, and, I use very simple materials. So it's something that I use newspapers, which are commonly used for toilet paper in Ghana and other things. So I was showing that and just doing work with soil. So as far as people drawing, when I come back, I see some of the children show me some of their work that they're doing. I don't think it's organized, but one of the daughters in the family that I lived with, I gave her all the art supplies and gave her the paper, and she's very responsible and mature. She's only 14, but she seemed to be having a lot of leader qualities and wonderful, just abilities to organize children. So I gave her all the materials before I left. And I left just last year, in 2016 was the last time I was there. So I'm hoping, I'm not sure yet, it's hard to keep in contact with people, and I think I always believe, even if children aren't continuously doing it, you plant a little seed that might sprout later on. And I know for myself that sometimes it takes, I might not be doing work per se, but I'm looking at things differently, or I'm thinking about things differently from the work that I did, you know, in the previous time. So it makes me feel like whatever is done, it's hard to gauge or hard to tell. But I think, you know, some children are doing work because I see it when I come back. And then, but there's nothing where I just have it like a continued organized. I want it to be, in some ways, just very organic. And so they can realize they can just do it anytime. It doesn't have to have a teacher. You don't have to have someone who plans something. Like, we just worked on the floor in the house when I was there, so you don't even need a table. You just plop down on the floor and start working with paper. So I think that is something that I might try to work on even more when I get back, is to keep kind of sharing the materials with some of the children. They can use them when I leave, and then they always do it at school. So they're learning some really good fundamentals in school, more traditional methods of drawing with perspective, and even learning like traditional village arts. So I think it all is connected. And so what I do with them can carry on into what they're doing in school, and in other words, yeah.
And we just like to remind our listeners that our guest today is Daniel Kerkhoff, with a visual artist living in Minneapolis, and he's also a traveler. Daniel, you know, like the culture in Africa is like really strong, and you see it on the street, you see it everywhere, like on planes and cars. So you, as an artist, as an American artist who lives in Ghana, and we've been traveling back and forth, how has your trip to Ghana inspired your work?
Yeah, I think, you know, definitely it's really inspiring. I really felt like the whole culture was just full of amazing, like, just ripe kind of things happening. You know, the kente weaving is really famous, so that beautiful shape and color and just format of this geometry that I saw everywhere was really kind of inspiring me. You know, like just the natural elements, the soil, and I saw Dinka symbols everywhere, which is, you know, a very common thing that's Pan-African now with the Ghanaian Ashanti region. The symbols are very popular, and I used them, and I was inspired by those. The artists right now are really flowering in Ghana. I think part of it was the Biennale I think a couple of years ago. Ibrahim Mahama was featured in the Biennale, and Anatsui, I think, was one of the curators or involved with the creation of that. So it really sparked, I think, a lot more energy, and I saw that more so in 2016, and more creative, more experimental. Lots of performance art happening now. So I went to some wonderful exhibits at Nibuke Foundation in Accra, and I went to amazing one at a new gallery called Gallery 1957. It's in a really nice hotel, and a 40-person performance. It was really amazing. I'm connecting with and sharing and learning from them too, and they're, you know, hopefully, you know, we're creating bonds. I'm connecting them with other artists I know. You met Atta Kwame, who was in New York, and he is an amazing artist. So all these artists I'm learning from, and I'm also learning just from the culture. The dance, I took the Batik workshop for 6 weeks at the Kumasi Cultural Center, and that was really a good experience for me. And Batik is a big tradition in Ghana that gave me another way of just viewing art and experiencing art in that traditional craft. So there are all these things I kind of use in some way or another with what I'm doing, and take what makes it real for me.
So did you also have the chance to collaborate with other artists and create works?
Yeah, I don't know if it was more collaboration, but just sharing information. I went to a residency in 2009. I was invited to SAMHSA in Kumasi, and I just went and listened to talks and then shared with other artists what I'm doing. And from that, we create kind of a friendship and bond. And I did a talk at the Foundation for Contemporary Art and made a lot of connections with artists. I bring books and art books and art zines and magazines and journals, and I give them to the Foundation for Contemporary Art. They have a library in Accra, and then with that, artists can, use them for whatever reason. I did invite an artist from South Korea who was part of a residency to do drawings in the village, and she came for 3 or 4 days and did drawings of the village, portraits, and in turn the villagers did portraits of her, and that was a really great experience for people. I hope to do more collaborations, and I want to start looking at murals because I've done the murals in Ecuador and in Minneapolis, so I'm thinking that will be the next step I take too, is doing murals, and that will be possible with other artists and with students.
Well, this is, and as an artist, how do you happen to combine like the modern Western style with the African traditional style?
Yeah, I guess they seem very similar to me in many ways. I mean, as far as strong emphasis on design and pattern, and I guess for me, I really fell in love with the symbols, and I just am able to kind of synthesize, even like many contemporary artists now are using traditional methodology and using just like materials that aren't common. So gravitating towards the soil and charcoal seems like something that's very contemporary, and it's something that's all available in Ghana. So it seemed to make sense to use that, and even creating large collages where I'd create using symbols of what I see in the village becomes something that can be considered very contemporary, even though you're using symbols from the traditional village. So I think there's a lot of crossover that can be really kind of just using it in a different way. There's traditional painting, of course, in Ghana that's very common, and that, I wasn't as interested in that. There's a lot of contemporary art happening now in Ghana, so it was interesting to see some of what their perceptions are and their experiences living there and growing up there, and then my kind of going there, and that's what I like about traveling. Sometimes it's like being a child again, to see things fresh. So for me, it was all new and all exciting and different, so it made it easy to kind of start creating, I think, something fresh.
Yeah, I mean, it's always interesting to live in a village, because if you from somewhere else and you live in a village, you're already known by everybody. But what was the reaction of people having you there and working with the children?
Yeah, for the most part, people knew me through the Peace Corps volunteer that was there for 2 years, and he was mainly farming, and he did a lot in the village. So I think that introduction really helped a lot. I was introduced to many people who assisted me and gave me great information. The village leader, Mr. Otto, was really helpful, and just helping with exhibitions, and really it was interesting what I was doing, and loved that I was working with the children. And so I had many books I brought. I filled one suitcase full of books and gave them to add to the community library. The children loved looking at the books, and their parents seemed to really appreciate that the children, could come and look at books. And I think, for the most part, it was somewhat confusing, like art, because they're not used to it. And, there's still, like anywhere in the world, artists are sometimes suspicious of not being a real kind of like profession kind of thing. So, I mean, sometimes difficult to explain to people that, I do these projects and this is what I do. But I think they still enjoyed the end results. They could see all the work I was doing was perplexing, but then when they saw it in the exhibition, then they could really see, like, oh yeah, this makes sense now. Or I can see what he was doing more clearly. So,
yeah. I know there's a great difference in the work you did in Ghana and the one you did in the United States. Did you guys chance to show your work, the work you did in Ghana here in America?
Yeah, the work I did in Ghana, I had this exhibition, and that went really well. People really loved it. It was in a place called the Warren in Minneapolis, which is an old auto body shop. And I had some very well-respected artists from Minneapolis come and just seemed to really like the work. And some had been to Ghana. Gabrielle Seville is just right now came out with a book. She's a performance artist. And we wrote a book called Swallow's Dish, and she just loved the show, according to what she said, just seemed real to her and her experiences in Ghana. So I was really happy, because it's always tricky. I mean, you're being a foreigner coming in to another country, or being, you know, someone who just comes in. I don't want to be disrespectful or be someone who just is taking something. It's a, you know, exchange, I guess, and I wanted to be really clear that, you know, this is my art, that this is my interpretation, but using some elements of my experience. It's my experience in the culture and my experience with the community I was in. So I hoped that came through, and I think people seemed to learn more about Ghana and learn more about the whole, and then appreciate the art and see that it was something that was manageable, in the sense that they were amazed too that I brought most of everything in 2 suitcases and a carry-on back. I pretty much was able to.
So are you planning to show those works in New York or somewhere else in the United States?
Well, yeah, eventually I would like to show, because right now I've done a residency and I'm connected with the community in the city of Hanoi, Vietnam, and in the village in Ecuador, in the southern Andes, Sisi de Mejo, Ecuador, and also in Abidjan, Ghana. So I would like to eventually show the 3 installations together, and eventually I wanted to connect with the community in Europe and Australia and keep weaving and sharing. Right now, I mean, it takes so much time and energy and the way galleries are set up now, it takes over a year sometimes to plan ahead for an exhibition. So I'm basically been moving around so much that it takes too much to make. That takes too much effort, so.
Your art concept is really original and really good too. What you do is you travel around the world, do your own residencies, and bring back the work in the United States. You've been in Ecuador, Vietnam, and Africa. Let's talk about your experience and then in Ecuador, and then we go to Vietnam. How was it in Ecuador compared to Africa?
Well, yeah, it's interesting how similar, I think, because they were both villages, and, it's in Ecuador, I'm up in the mountains really high, and I was invited by one of the members of the village to come to his village, and he gave me a house to work in. So I had my own house, and the neighborhood children would come to the house and do drawings, and I did my art primarily on newspaper there, and I used newspapers. And I used eucalyptus leaves because there's eucalyptus trees. So the materials, some of them were similar, but it was still an emphasis on recyclables. And the village people also were kind of like unsure of what was going on, but appreciative that there was someone who was interested in their village. And I think that's how it was in Abidjan. There's someone who really wants to just come here and live out of all the places, because, like you said, a lot of people would choose to live in the cities. So just showing my appreciation and interest in what their culture is. I took photographs. The farming is very emphasized with cows and with corn, maize. So there was lots of farming that I was documenting and also assisting with. So in some ways that whole experience was very similar. Maybe different farming techniques, but some are very similar too, because they would go down into the lowlands and farm cacao, cocoa, and also this different maize was common, which is in both countries, and so there was some really nice kind of parallels I liked. alike, that they both were very indigenous. In Ecuador, they speak Quechua in the village mostly with the adults, which is the Incan language, and in Adujama, Ghana, they spoke Twi, which is the Ashanti language. So even that was in some way something that was, they had their colonial language, English in Ghana, Spanish in Ecuador, but they still very much had that identity before the colonial times too. So that was nice.
But what was the experience in Ecuador like working with the kids and then like the older artists living in there? Was it like really positive lives or?
Yeah, but the children, I really, I actually brought children's art from Ghana and hung it up with the photographs of children in Ghana in the room that I worked with children. So the children would come and they would do drawings, but also got to experience, looking at children's art from Ghana and the photographs. So that was one way of kind of making a connection and reading from me. And I documented those children looking at the children's art from Ghana and brought it back to the village in Adujama to show the kids. But the children in Ghana or in Ecuador emphasized, it seemed like the mountains and the farming practices a lot more than in Ghana. So there was definitely a much more landscape kind of drawings in Ecuador that was interesting to me too. It wasn't quite as, for me, it wasn't as quite as creative a work as what Ghanaians were doing, but it emphasized how much they were connected to their environment too, the mountains and lots of like scenes with flowers are really prevalent in the mountains there. And I did meet a lot of artists down in Cuenca, which is about 2 hours south of the village. And they have a biennial there. And I was able to go to the biennial. And in 2011, 2012, I was there for the first time for 8.5 months. And was able to experience the biennial. And that was great. And I had some artwork in a gallery down there in Arte Contemporaneo, and that was nice just to have. And I did have a show of my work at the bookstore that has a gallery space, Libre Mundi. So that was really nice. And then the artists are doing really, I thought what I was amazed of in Cuenca was the street art, the big murals, very interesting street art was what I was really fascinated by. Really excellent big murals on walls, and so it was very political or very just less decorative and more just really profound or unique, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, some of the artists around the world are really open-minded. They're coming when they see like another artist from another country.
Yeah, it seems like that's what is fun too, is I was able to connect some artists that like Ghanaian artists and some artists in Vietnam I connected with, and in Minneapolis some artists have been able to connect with Ghanaian artists, and that's been really a good experience. And street artists I know in Ecuador have on Facebook. Everyone uses Facebook now, so that really helped a lot. And people were really kind of like curious about what other people were doing around the world and sharing. So that's really nice. I think Facebook in that way is a very positive advice.
It kind of looks like that artists are work citizens because they feel like home wherever they find their like artist friends,
Yeah, there's, I think with the internet now, people are just opening up so much more. So I see a lot of artists learning from everyone all over the world now. So it really seems to be kind of like this expanding, and residencies are really common now. I like doing my own residency because it just gives me freedom, and I can it's kind of just something a little bit different. I'm kind of alone and making my own connections, and it just helps me to, I don't know, it just stays creative that way where I don't have to do the applications also, because there's many artists just doing amazing things going around the world with official residencies too. So
Yeah, because residencies are sometimes good, especially when you do your own, because in another country, because you'll be connected with the environment, and the environment will require you to create new things. So anytime you move to another place, you have more inspiration because of things you see, people you meet, and people you talk to.
Yeah, I guess the thing that, there's dangers with that too is you could be distracted more, you could get just tuned to just surface cliches, and that's when sometimes you have to be aware of that. You can fall into, you just travel someplace and you do like a kind of just a cliche kind of thing. So I try to, be aware of that when I am in the place. And my first time in a community, I stayed 8.5 months. I didn't originally plan this, but it seemed to just work out that way with visas. But about 8.5 months, just under the baby gestation period. So in that period of time, I'd like to feel like I'm kind of like being somewhat, reborn in a new culture, having a, it's about creativity and kind of like this whole experience of being a new person from that whole experience, or a changed person, I guess, from that. So I always try to go for about 8.5 months. I was in 8.5 months in Ghana in 2009, 8.5 months in Ecuador in 2011 and 12. And then in Hanoi, Vietnam, I chose city. I was there in 2015 for 8.5 months.
Yeah.
Originally, so yeah.
But your last travel was in Vietnam. It must have been like another experience to be in Vietnam and, as an artist, you doing residency.
Yeah, that was definitely a totally different experience from Ghana and Ecuador because I chose the city this time. And part of the reason why I chose the city was because of the language barrier. So I knew Spanish and I knew English, so I knew I could get by in Ghana and Ecuador that way. But in Vietnam, I didn't know anything new. So I chose, and I also just wanted to try something different. So I chose the city of Hanoi. And yeah, the artists there were really interesting. I connected with them right away. And this past time, I was there for 3.5 months in 2016. And I was invited to do a residency with 25 artists. So that was a whole new experience for me to just be involved more with like an organization. And they gave us tours. The artists invited us to their homes and were giving us meals and sharing their artwork. And we had talks. I did a 2-day workshop using my books that I bring and my magazines and journals and all these things I bring for libraries. So for me, that was just easier to connect with artists, easier to work. And I had an exhibition, group exhibition in Hanoi that time, and a group exhibition in Saigon, Ho Chi Minh City, at the Kuru Bar, which is run by a group of artists and collectors. So it was just really a little bit easier for me to be around artists when I was in the city. But it was still culturally just so different and fascinating. I was happy to. And I used mainly, like, because I was in the city, I mainly used receipts, maps, brochures, and any kind of paper materials or plastics or food wrappers I had. That's what became my main, like, material when I was making collages. I do collages of those on A4 office paper again. So.
And how is like the Japanese accent like?
Yeah, the art scene there, because, it's like, I think because it's fairly new, because of the communist rule and because of the wars, they're really just hungry and thriving now. I think their art spaces are, and they're getting also lots of economic booming going on there with Korea and Japan and China and Vietnam all opening up their markets. And so I think there's a lot of like new energy there that's really exciting. They have to be careful because of the government, so they can't really do too much blatant anti-government, or anything that would be critical of the government. But there's still very interesting social commentaries in the art and excellent skills. A lot of artists graduate from the University of Fine Arts that's in Hanoi, and they teach a lot of, very fundamental drawing and painting and sculpture and learn very good skills. And from there, they're expanding out into installation and multimedia artists, and performance too is very popular. So in some ways, you know, I see it, contemporary art in these countries, there's a lot of similar threads. You know, maybe it's, you know, like a lot of things, there's fashion or collective consciousness that people are following, but there's a lot of similarities in a lot of contemporary art all over the world. And lots of people doing performance combined with multimedia and large installation. Very connected.
When you were in Vietnam, did you get a chance to work with some of the children, like the workshops, like the
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this was different because I didn't have really my own space. Like in Ghana and Ecuador, I just used my house or wherever I was living as an informal drop-in space. But in Vietnam, I worked with 3 children's groups. One was with street children called the Blue Dragon Children's Foundation. And another was with a foster home for girls called Blossom House, run by Humanitarian Services of Children in Vietnam. And then the third one was with children with disabilities that's called Vietnam Friendship Village. And these children come from regions that were affected by Agent Orange, which was, you know, dropped by the Americans in the war to get rid of the foliage in the jungles, but it also stayed in the groundwater, and they have high birth defects. So those 3 organizations, I would go once or twice a week and do art with children, and that was really rewarding. I wasn't sure if I wanted to work with organizations as much, but after I started, I really enjoyed it, and the people I worked with were great. I had some support, and it was just, and I brought children's art from Ghana and Ecuador and photographs to share with some of the children organizations I worked with. I worked also with an art school, just helping, you know, as a facilitator, teaching new ideas for creativity and just different ways to teach ideas and art for children. So I get a lot of inspiration from children's art. I find it, you know, just very fresh and open, and you're not encumbered by lots of just cliches that we fall into growing up, where you just fall into certain dogmatic kind of thinking, but they just seem so open to trying different things out. So I really was happy to work with them there too. They were the street children at Blue Dragon. They're doing some really interesting. And we were able to use paint more, whereas it's more difficult in Ghana and Ecuador. So, and I'll take my work from Vietnam. I took it to Ghana last winter, the children's art to Ghana, and hung it up, and I brought photographs so these children in the village in Ghana were able to learn from the children in Vietnam or just experience their lives more. So that's great.
I mean, what he's doing is like it's a very novel idea. You like in Ghana, after working with the kids, you take like the work and all the experience to Ecuador, and from Ecuador to Vietnam. It's like he's doing like a traveling show, right?
Yeah, there is that. Yeah, I put them in portfolios and photo albums. So that was really great. Just a second.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that was really great just to have it all documented and put into their community centers in Ecuador and Ghana. And I have 2 art spaces I work with in Vietnam, and they're keeping the documentation and the artworks that I've done. So it is kind of nice. There's a certain psychic, even if people aren't always looking at it, if it's in this place, for me it feels like there's some kind of psychic energy connection that way too. And a sharing, you know, it's kind of like this weaving sharing, I think is a big part of art and what I'm trying to do or doing.
Okay, now you're back in America, you're in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Yeah, after traveling to Ghana, Ecuador, Vietnam. Now, what are you doing exactly right? What are you doing in Minneapolis? Are you working on a project, or
yeah, you know,
you're working with?
Right now I just got back after, you know, end of December, and then I was in New York for 3 weeks. So I'm gonna basically just work on my own art. Also, I'm going to be doing some projects, but some are a whole grouping of paintings I'm doing with soil and paint mixing and really highly textured. works that I just want to focus on those. And I work at the Contemporary Art Space, the Walker Art Center, as a gallery assistant, so I'll continue that. There's a chance I'll be teaching up in North Minneapolis. There's a place that I might be teaching at. So I'm not sure yet, but I'm going to just spend a few months just focusing on my art and I have to work on my documentation that I've done this past time in Vietnam. I'm going to give a talk at this elderly center in Mankato at the end of the month. So I got little things like that I keep doing. And then I'm planning maybe to go back to Vietnam in August I can teach there, teach art and English and actually save money. So I would go there and maybe save some money up so I can go back to Ecuador again and then back to Ghana again. So that's because I self-fund my art. I have to kind of take breaks and just regroup and save money. And I basically live, with different family members and friends and able to save that way and do my art in different places. And my parents' place, they let me use their space for a studio. So it's just kind of like reconnecting here with people that I know and seeing artists and keep working on my own work. That seems to be what I'll be doing the next few months.
Ibu, we have Sila on the line who want to say a few words,
Okay, Daniel, we have somebody calling from New York.
As we're coming to the end of the program.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, Sila, go ahead, we'll listen.
Hi, Ibu.
Hi, Sila, how are you?
How are you, Daniel? I'm good.
Yeah, good. We have our guest, Daniel Kerkhoff, who's an international artist and traveler.
I really listened to what you developed, and to tell you, Daniel, I really admire your work and your international experience. That's really amazing to me, and let me tell you, you are doing a great job. You're a great artist, and I just want to send you all my respect and my support. And then I have also one question that I want to ask you before you go. I see that most of artists concentrate on some place doing their job in their workshop, but what I noticed is you have a big working experience outside. So what I want to ask you is what really motivates you to travel around the world? Is it an option or was it just an opportunity?
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it. I guess I've always loved traveling since I was little. So I think for me to combine art and travel was what my goal was when I was living in New York. 7 years, I started saying, how do I really make it work where I combine two things that I love to do? And traveling to me gives me always I guess. So I'm always getting new ideas. I don't take things for granted. When I go to a new place, it seems like I really make more effort to explore, and the whole idea of exploring and trying different things and new things just kind of expands my sense of awareness and what's real, what's reality about
wonderful,
what's possible.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so I just love traveling.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And what are the things who must catch your attention with that travel experience around
Yeah, I didn't catch that last part for some reason.
Can you ask you a question again, because we're not hearing you right now?
Yeah. I was just asking him what are the things who catch his attention the most things in his travel, like maybe different many places, and catch his attention as an artist.
About catching my attention. What places or what things? Yeah, I mean, as far as catching my attention goes, I feel like Yeah, I think there's always something that I gravitate towards, and that's a surprise a lot of times. I don't really know. I don't have a predetermined idea what's going to be attracting me, but it's wonderful when it does kind of like all of a sudden become clear. Like when I discovered how I could use the soil in Ghana, that was really a great experience. And the eucalyptus leaves in Ecuador, I just was collecting because I loved them so much, and people thought, I was a little bit crazy, seeing me just picking up leaves all the time. So it becomes like almost like a performance art, picking up soil and picking up leaves for me and seeing how people respond to that, and just being aware of my environment more. Because it's true, like when I'm at home sometimes or when I'm in my own country, I tend to just take things for granted, or I tend to just get into my routines and not be as aware of my environment. So when I do travel, it just makes me more perceptive, I think, and open to more possibilities. So, in Hanoi, Vietnam, I spent like 2 or 3 months just kind of not certain what I was going to do. I just kind of was just absorbing a lot and taking a lot in. And then it just all of a sudden became very clear to me, like I'm collecting all these receipts and collecting all these brochures and tabs and business cards. And they became just the foundation for my work there. And that was just